Welcome to the Back to Life podcast, where we explore living well, loving well, and being well. I'm your host, Nicole, and I invite you to tune in for inspirational conversations to get you back to life. Let's get started. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Back to Life podcast, where we talk about living well, loving well, and being well. Today, we're kicking off the Look Who's Talking series, and this one is all about the voices that shape us, whether we realize it or not. So let me ask you, who has your ear? And who's shaping your mindset, your choices, and even your confidence? And joining me for this conversation is the amazing Shannon Spilsbury. She is a marriage and family therapist and the owner of Strengthen Foundations, where she helps couples and families communicate better and build stronger relationships. Welcome, Shannon.
Thank you so much, Nicole. I'm excited to be here and dig into this topic. It's such a game changer in how we navigate life.
It really is. So let's start with the big picture. We all have voices in our lives, right? We have friends, family, social media, news. Oh, and that one influencer who somehow convinces us we need a $75 water bottle,
heck,
right? I know, just to stay hydrated properly, But how do these voices that we prioritize shape our choices and overall mindset?
Great question. The voices we listen to act like filters for how we see the world. Encouraging voices, we feel confident. Critical voices, we second guess everything.
Yeah.
Over time, these voices kind of shape who we are, our self-worth, our decision-making abilities, and even our inner dialogue.
Oh my gosh, that's so true. And sometimes we don't even realize that a voice is actually influencing us until we step back. Yeah. We just got to stop and, listen. So I know I've had moments where I've thought, wait, do I really, why am I believing it? Why do I believe this? Especially when it comes to that self-talk, we can just kind of damage ourselves sometimes.
For sure.
So Shannon, how can people start identifying which voices are helping them to grow versus what's helping them or holding them back?
Sure. Yeah. That's a great question. I think some of the things that from my perspective I've seen are questions to ask ourselves, like, how do I feel after engaging with this certain person or certain content?
Oh, yeah.
Do I feel encouraged or drained? Am I inspired or do I feel more insecure? If it's consistently negative, that's a sign that it may not be a healthy influence.
And how many times do we deal with that and we don't even recognize,
Yeah.
So that's just really such a great gut check. But now let's talk about red flags. So what do you feel are some signs that someone's voice might be unhealthy or even toxic?
Great question. I think there's a few big ones. Guilt tripping, manipulation, undermining our confidence.
Yeah.
If somebody makes you feel small or incapable, creating anxiety around decision making. Healthy voices can challenge you, but they don't tear you down. A lot of times I encourage clients to ask themselves, would you say what you're saying to would you say what you're saying to yourself to somebody else?
Oh, kind of like talk to yourself as though you're talking to someone you love.
Yes. Yeah. Very much so. Another question is what you're saying to yourself actually helpful? Is it encouraging or is it hope-filled?
Yeah.
Is this thought or is this influence, potentially unhealthy influence, is it based in feelings or is it based in facts?
So it's almost like focus on where is this thought or where is this conversation taking you?
Ooh, yes.
That's probably a good way to kind of look
Sum
at
it
it.
Up. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so this is so important. And, as we're talking about this, and we're talking about talk to yourself the way you would talk to somebody, you love, your friend or something like that. It's like our self-talk really matters as well.
Sure.
And that self-talk can be the result of the influences that we've been exposed to.
Even from childhood.
Oh my gosh, yes. And then sometimes these voices, these have been in our head or in our lives for so long that we just accept them, particularly if they're friends, like close friends, family members. That's a big one. That's a huge one.
Yep.
Your children, your spouse, your workplace,
yep.
all of these things, have more influence on us than we realize.
Sure.
But once we do recognize them, what do you think is the first step to shifting away from toxic influence?
That's an interesting question. I think one area for sure is boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't always mean cutting people off. Boundaries are meant to encourage healthy relationships. But it does mean limiting or changing the access to those voices that aren't serving us.
Oh, yeah. And, boundaries are about how we want to show up in healthy relationships, like you said. And with those boundaries, we realize that what we allow is what will continue.
Yep.
So you have to ask yourself, it's like what were the ones you were mentioning? You were saying like especially if you're surrounding yourself with somebody who makes you feel small or incapable, it's kind of like, are you going to continue?
Yeah.
Now, I know that can get hard, like, especially if that's like your boss, or something. I mean, it's still not tolerable.
Right.
I don't, it's not okay.
But we don't have to allow that to sink into the depths of our soul and become a truth.
Oh, for sure. We do not have to agree with it.
Yes.
Yes. And so many times I feel that you can be exposed to something. It's like it slowly chips away. And after a while, you're kind of like, well, maybe it is, and that's where it starts to turn into a belief.
Yep.
Yeah. And, okay. So with that, let's flip it and look at choosing positive influence. How can we be more intentional about choosing voices that actually uplift us? We don't want to talk about like that toxic positivity type thing, that. But how can we really be mindful and choose better for ourselves?
I love that question. I think it's looking for voices that align with our values, that make us feel seen and empowered.
Oh, yeah.
Also being mindful of what we consume online. The social media, the people that we hang around, podcasts, books that we, read and either listen to or read.
Yeah.
Those things matter. The things that we're pouring into ourselves, they matter.
They really do. And you know what? You mentioned social media, and that can be a huge one. I mean, we all like to scroll,
sure.
It's
it's mindless.
It's a lovely, no, let's reframe it. It's a lovely escape. No, it's not healthy all the time, but sure. Sometimes we're scrolling and then you notice an hour has gone by.
Yep.
That hour could have been spent differently. Yep. But in that hour, what are you consuming?
Exactly. I was just going to say, I feel like every time that I get lost in the consumption, I don't necessarily feel encouraged when I stop.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing how wonderful other people's lives are in my social media feed, and I'm thinking, well, what the heck am I doing wrong sometimes,
Oh, that comparison. Yeah, that comparison is, what is it? The killer of joy, the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And, we know on a surface level that all that glitters is not gold. Yes. Everyone wants to put... Why do you think we have filters?
Sure.
What? We have so many things, and not everything you see on social media is the truth. Or sometimes people just share a little bit too much truth.
Sure.
And that's not healthy either. Mm-hmm. There's a healthy balance to that, and that doesn't mean that somebody should just be bawling, online, and just trying to find their people or whatever. Right. But it does mean it's like just being mindful of what you are taking in.
Yeah.
You go ahead.
Is it making me feel small or incapable? Like we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Is it creating anxiety?
Yeah. And just because this person can go on 5 trips in a year and you're just trying to get away for the weekend, it's okay.
Right.
It's okay. Let them do that. Because think about it. Here's a good refrain for you. They have to pay for that. You don't.
That's right.
Yeah,
that's true.
Or even if they are able to live that kind of life, you don't know what they had to do in order to do that.
Sure.
And I'm not trying to, it's no judgment or anything. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a negative thing.
Yeah.
I'm just saying these are everybody's life. Stay in your own lane.
Yeah.
Sure. It's hard to do when you're kind of, sucked into it. Exactly. But like the people, the podcasts, the books, that, it does, what we engage with does matter. And nowadays, people, we need to be kind, and people are not kind. But if you have this disrespect and unkindness that just keeps filtering yourself, that chips away at you as well.
Yes.
So that's why it's like, be mindful to take care of yourself and notice what is coming in and what you can filter out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how is that affecting how you see yourself?
Oh my gosh. Yes. And so, okay, it's time for our listen and learn challenge. So what I want our audience to do is take 5 minutes today and just write down the top 5 voices that are influencing you. Think about family, think about friends, think about in personal as well as professional environments. Who are the people that you engage with the most? And write down the top 5 people or voices. Nice. Now, if it's social media, then write down, I'm on Instagram, I'm on TikTok, I'm on whatever your social of choice, YouTube,
Yeah.
But after you have identified those top 5 voices, I want you to ask yourself, are they building me up or are they breaking me down? Like, what is the response after engaging with this particular voice? And if a voice is not serving you, what's one step that you can take to change that influence? What do you think about that?
I love that. Listen and learn challenge.
Yes.
I encourage you guys to try it.
Yeah, I think it'll be really good. And it can be really good and really healthy, just to kind of, awareness is key.
Yes.
Awareness is key. And once you start with awareness, then you can actually do something about it. Yep. So Shannon, this was such an insightful conversation. And I thank you for, sharing your wisdom and engaging in this conversation with me.
You bet. This was awesome. Thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. So next up, we're going to tackle the messages that we've internalized and then ask ourselves, who told you that? You don't want to miss it. Until next time, take care of yourself and be well. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. We'd love to hear your thoughts and stories about this series that we're talking about. You can follow us online at our website or on socials, and information about that is in the show notes. Be well.